My name is Alan Can. I help organizations to deliver software innovations quickly and cost effectively. If you go out and look for low cost or free automated regression test tool, most likely what you'll find is some tool that requires you to create your test as code. The good thing is that you can get things done that way. The bad thing about having code-based regression test tool is that you've got to maintain that code base, which means down the track there will be code maintenance that will come back to haunt you, or if your system under test changes, then you'll need to update the code accordingly, otherwise your test will break. The alternative to that is tools that allows you to record and playback and has the ability to recognize objects on the screen so that when the underlying system under test changes, it doesn't break the test script. Rational Test Workbench Web UI Tester is one of those tools, and recently IBM has launched a starter edition, which is a free edition that you can just download and use for free. The only limitation is that it only runs on Windows operating systems, and the fact that it doesn't provide you with a command line interface that you can use to integrate to continuous integration tools. Other than that, the functionality is basically the same as the full version. Let's take a look at how you can get a copy of that starter edition, as well as how do you go about using it. Now, you can download from this URL, and I will show you how it works. Click download. It asks you for your IBM ID. If you don't already have an IBM ID, you can register one for free. I'll use my IBM ID here. Then you'll be presented with a short form. The key to the short form is to agree to the terms and conditions. Then you'll be presented with the page to download. Once you've got the file downloaded, double-click on the executable. It will prompt you for your IBM ID again. So let's enter that IBM ID again. If it asks you for an updated installation manager, just click continue. Then you'll be prompted for license agreement. Accept that. Accept the default location. And install. Once the installation manager has finished installing, let's restart it. Again, if you are prompt for your IBM ID, enter your IBM ID here. Now it is ready for installing the Rational Test Workbench Web UI Tester. So let's click through that. Now make sure you check out the terms and conditions for the starter edition, because that's the edition that we're going to use, and choose to accept that condition if you are going ahead with the installation. Just accept the default directory. Again, I'll accept the default options. If you're installing it on a 32-bit machine, then choose 32 bits. I'll just go next throughout. Now you'll want to choose to install the starter edition. Whatever you created in the starter edition, down the track, if you need to use the full edition, you can reuse the same artifacts that you created. And then finally, we'll click install, and that will go ahead and install Rational Test Workbench Web UI Starter Edition for you. This download may take a while, so you may want to go away, get a coffee, or do something else before coming back to continue with the installation. Once the installation is finished, we'll click Finish and we'll launch the application. This is where you launch the application here. I use the default workspace. If you are creating a second project, usually you will change the name of the space to something else. But for the first project, we'll just keep the default value. It starts with the welcome screen, but basically what you want to do is to go into the workbench. Let me maximize the screen. Let me show you how to create a simple regression test using some functionalities of Rational Test Workbench Web UI Tester. Now let's start with recording a test. Click on the record button, choose Web UI Test. Since it's the first time we create a test, we will create a new project to contain all the test artifacts. And I'll call this test Search Test because I'll be using the Web UI tester to test Google's feature for correcting misspelled terms. I'll use Chrome for the recording, and I'll keep all these as default. So the Web UI tester launched Chrome, and what I'll do is entering the URL of my system under test. You'll notice that it also tells you to clear your cache before you start, because Test Workbench also will record the execution time of your test. So clearing the cache will make sure that the test time, the execution time is correctly recorded. I'll search for an incorrect term or a misspelled term. And what I'd like to verify is the fact that it is showing results for the correct spelled term. And this is all we want to do. So let's close the browser window and stop the recording of the test. We won't worry about data pool candidates for now. So we've entered value, we've pressed enter. The next thing that I'd like to do is to add a verification point. A verification point is used for verifying data in a particular field. So in this case, let me launch my system under test again and show you what it looks like. So what I would like to know is whether the correct term shows up on here. On Chrome, what you can do is to go inspect that element. in fact, it's contained in this paragraph class, so I'll just use this particular P class that has a class ID of this particular name here. So I'll go to that paragraph in my verification point. I'll look for that paragraph that has a class that equals to sp_cnt card section. Alternatively, you can also look for a particular location. This is particularly handy if you have a mobile application, a mobile-based web application. And I want to know that the content contains the word that is correctly spelled. So that is my verification point. Let's save that. I'll close this browser here. And I'll also say close the browser window. At the end of the test. So let's save that test and run the test and see how it looks like. It will open up the test execution perspective, which is okay. That's the test execution perspective. So it changes the window that you're looking at. You can choose other browsers if you want to, but I'll just use Chrome. So now Test Workbench is doing its own data entry and verification. Looks like it's finished. That's pretty quick, isn't it? So you can see that it has gone to verify the paragraph. This is a test log. If we go to the test report itself, it captures every step with a time, measured response time, as well as screenshots. So in this case, our verification point shows that the content is this, which does contain the word lucky. So that's why it passed the test, and it also managed to close the browser window. So now if we switch back to the Test Workbench view, now the next step we want to add to the test is some data pool variables. So the ability to use data pool to drive this test here. So for example, we may have more than one term that we want to test. So let's do that. So we'll click into the term. The term has been highlighted in green, which shows that it is actually a potential candidate for data pool. So Test Workbench automatically recognizes that. You can go substitute from a data source. In this case, we don't have any data sources, so let's create one. Create a data pool. And I'll use a wizard to create that. We'll loop through the test data sequentially, and we'll store that within project 1 as well. And we'll call it data pool 1. Now I want 2 columns and 2 rows in my test data. Alternatively, you can also import a CSV file with all your test data in it, and that will automatically create a new data pool. So finish with that, and I would say associate this with the first variable. Remember, we went off the subroutine of creating a data pool. Now there are 2 variables in our data pool. I want to associate this to the first variable. And then I want to associate the correctly spelled term with the second variable. So again, substitute. And I would associate the second variable here. Later on, I'll fill in the data pool with some test data. But before I do that, I want to make sure that Test Workbench will loop through every one of my data. So I will insert a loop here. And we'll move the selected object, which is the Google page, and all the actions that are on the page into the loop. And I'll say, because I've got 2 lines in my data pool, I'll loop twice. Now the next thing that I want to do is to edit the data pool variable, and here is the data pool. So if I double click on this one on the left, it will open up this page here where I can enter the actual value of the test data. You can also rename the variables in the data pool. So this is spelled just for easier to read, and this is corrected. Right, save that. Now we've got a second test. So let's run this second test here. I'll save the test again and run the test. Again, it will open up the test execution perspective, and I'll use Chrome as my base browser. Now the test comes back with a bit of a fail here. If I go back to my test here, I can look for what went wrong. So obviously the first test passed pretty quickly, which is good. The second time when we enter the second item here, it went timed out looking for the object, and you'll notice that it is actually looking for the object with the added text whose the content is the old search term, and that's why it couldn't find that search term. So the best way to fix that problem is to go back to the test script. So let's switch back to the Test Workbench view and change this. Again, this needs to be substituted by a data pool variable. So I'll say that's the misspelled variable. If we save this and run the test again, it should pass pretty quickly. looks like it's done and it's passed 100%. In this video, you have seen how to download, install, and create your first test using Rational Test Workbench Web UI Tester Starter Edition. I hope you enjoy watching this video, and I hope that this video helps you to find the regression test tool that you're looking for. Thank you for watching.